Hello everybody, welcome back to Access Blockbusters, and in today's video you read the title. We are going to be ranking all 16 live-action projects from the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4. Now for those of you who haven't been watching the recent video series, I've been going back through every single project in the MCU Phase 4, not including What If, the animated series, but going through all the live-action projects again, rewatching them, some for the first time since they originally came out, and looking to see what I think about these projects now that we're a few years removed from them, because I think that it's fair to say the MCU Phase 4 has been very messy, and there have been some very high highs and some very low lows, but I wanted to get a better perspective now that we're into Phase 5 and looking at how Phase 4 really stacks up now that we're a little bit removed from it. I think that it's really valuable just to take a step back sometimes, just as I did with the Star Wars series a year ago, and look to see what we can learn now that we're a couple years away from Phase 4 of the MCU coming out. So, if you haven't subscribed to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, make sure to do so, give this video a like, and let me know your own rankings of the 16 projects in the MCU Phase 4. This is just my list. Your list will not probably look the same as mine, and if it does, I'd love to hear that in the comments down below, but I'd also, just as much, if not even more so, love to hear your own individual list, so please make sure to comment with them down below. Again, make sure to subscribe to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel. We have some massive videos coming out later. I have a big two-part video essay where I attempt to fix the MCU Phase 4, and I think I did a pretty good job, so stay tuned, subscribe, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the ranking. Coming in at number 16 is Thor: Love and Thunder. There are definitely some good things about Thor: Love and Thunder. I think that it's always good to see Chris Hemsworth back because he was definitely one of the biggest stars of the MCU Infinity Saga, so to see him still have a part in the Multiverse Saga, and especially after the reinvigoration of Thor Ragnarok with the character, I thought it was good to see him again as Thor. That being said, I think that Taika Waititi went too far into the silliness. I think that Gore the God Butcher was a lot of wasted potential, especially because you had Christian Bale, who is a phenomenal actor, and you basically wasted the entire character. There was just way too much silly about this movie. The whole Omnipotent City section was just ridiculous. I think that even the way the lightning bolt looks, it just kind of speaks to the fact that this was more an SNL sketch more than an actual movie. And really, what did it do for the character other than making him a dad, which, I mean, that's great. I think that that's a really interesting dynamic to set up for the future. Other than that, though, some really interesting sequences like in the Shadow Realm. Otherwise, just a forgettable, cringy, often too silly film, for me, at least. Coming in at number 15 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. With every single Phase 4 MCU project, I think that each one of them has potential. Each one of them has a lot of potential, in fact. And so I think that it's not fair for me to say that this project is entirely horrible and should never have been made, because I think that especially the discussions between Sam Wilson and Isaiah Bradley are extremely poignant and very necessary to have in this day and age. That being said, I feel like the structure of the show was just way too haphazard and just a jumble at certain points. I think that there are subplots, entire subplots that could have been removed. I think that Zemo as a character, while I love Daniel Bro playing the role, I just think it was completely unnecessary. The Flag Smashers are some of just the most poorly written villains, not just in superhero media, but in just cinema and TV in general. And I think that, again, it's a lot of wasted potential because I can see the character arc of John Walker being very compelling. It is compelling in certain points. Obviously, like I mentioned, Sam and Isaiah, very compelling. The subplots with Bucky Barnes, because let's be honest, he really didn't get a lot to do in this show. And then Zemo and Thunderbolts and everything. It just felt like a whole jumble of ideas put together in a show that wasn't structured very well. And at the end of the day, I would have just appreciated if this was a movie. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Coming in at number 14 is She-Hulk Attorney at Law. This is a show that would typically find itself near the very bottom of my MCU rankings, but let's be honest, I'd only seen the show once, and the first time I thought it was okay with a lot of mixed and missed potential, but I think on this rewatch I was able to capture what this show was going for especially, and there were more elements of the show that I was able to enjoy now that I was seeing these episodes back to back to back to back, because just seeing these episodes on a weekly basis felt very disappointing and lackluster when you had these collection of sort of individual episodes, sitcom-y kind of episodes that just didn't appeal to me individually, but on a whole, I could understand what they were going for, and some of the jokes did land for me this time around. So I gave She-Hulk Attorney at Law a better ranking just because I think that I enjoyed the show for what it was a little bit more. Again, a lot of missed potential, especially with the premise of the ending. I mean, that's cool and all, but it felt like an ending for a completely different show, and I just wish that we focused on Jennifer Walters confronting the toxic extremism head on instead of just having this weird cop-out ending with Kevin, but, you know, it is what it is. It was entertaining. It has its problems. I'd be excited for season 2, though, so there's that. Coming in at number 13 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is a film that could have been a lot better in my opinion. That being said, doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I had a lot of fun with it. I think that the entire middle section is probably a little disjointed and doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a lot of just events happening with characters going from one place to another. That's especially embodied in the Illuminati sequence, which is fun. It's still always fun to watch, but maybe more fun to watch as an individual YouTube clip. This film kind of reminds me a lot of Avengers Age of Ultron, maybe a little less so than that in quality, but I think that it's fun to watch a lot of those clips from those two films just on YouTube. The whole film, I think, is a little clunky and maybe poorly written. And I think that that's a shame because our expectations were so high for this movie of being something more, something that really set up the multiverse saga and expand it further. Again, Benedict Cumberbatch is not bad as Doctor Strange. He's always a very solid presence in the MCU. And I always love seeing Wanda Maximoff as well. So, you know, not a lot to hate about this movie in particular, but not a lot to really love. Just an enjoyable, kind of fine film in the MCU, which you didn't hear a lot in the MCU phases 1 through 3 because a lot of those films were quite exceptional. So it's a little disappointing in that regard, but still a fine, enjoyable film in my opinion. Coming in at number 12 is Loki. Loki, again, I've said this many, many times before, my opinion has not really changed from the first time I saw this show. It is a wildly inconsistent show. And there are a couple other projects in this phase that are like that as well. I think that the high highs keep this show above projects like Thor: Love and Thunder, Falcon and Winter Soldier, She-Hulk: Attorney at Law, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because the high highs are incredibly well done. The dynamics between Owen Wilson's Mobius and Tom Hiddleston's Loki are fantastic. I love the first 2 episodes in particular. I really enjoy episode 4, and I kind of tolerate the rest of the show, and I really dislike episode 3. So while maybe as a finished product, I would prefer watching Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness again, I can't deny that Loki's potential and some of its execution is just way higher than Doctor Strange 2, leaps and bounds higher than any of the other projects that I've listed previously. So I have to give it some props for that. But as a finished package, not my favorite thing in the MCU. Coming in at number 11 is Black Widow. Black Widow is a film that should have been released way earlier. It's a shame that it wasn't released in phase 3 of the MCU because it would have had a lot more impact at that point. That being said, it's a fine movie. It's actually really enjoyable. It's one of those movies, though, one of those projects where you watch it once and then every single time you watch it, you forget that it's enjoyable. So you just kind of think it's a forgettable film, but every time you do watch it, it's very enjoyable and you have a good time, and then you immediately forget about it after the fact. And I've rewatched the film. I said in my rewatch video that I had that exact same experience where I totally forgot how enjoyable the film was until I saw it again, and now I've completely forgotten about that again. I just remember from my notes that, yeah, it was enjoyable, it was fun, but, you know, setting up Yelena, setting up Red Guardian, that's pretty cool. I just wish that Natasha had a better send-off than this film because I think she deserved it. I think her Endgame send-off was pretty poignant, but still, this was a big missed opportunity. Still fun, though. Coming in at number 10 is Moon Knight. I enjoy Moon Knight. I think that it sort of fits in that Loki camp of very high potential, but then a lot of missed opportunities. I don't think the lows of Moon Knight are quite as low as the lows of Loki, and I think that Loki has more highs than Moon Knight, but I also think that Moon Knight is maybe consistently a little bit better, which is why I rank it higher than Loki. I think that Oscar Isaac delivers just one of the most fantastic performances I've seen out of an A actor in a long time, especially in episode 5 when he's having to deal with that trauma again. I think that structurally the show is all over the place, which is, you know, a little ironic given the character, but I don't think that a lot of it works together really well. I think individual moments and individual episodes are very strong. I think that May, the actress May, who I can never pronounce her last name, who plays Layla, she's very solid. I think Khonshu's very fun. Ethan Hawke as a performer, as an actor, gives a great performance, but I think that the whole ending with CGI monsters fighting and then not even talking about Jake Lockley until the very end and just missing the killing of Arthur Harrow or the capturing of Arthur Harrow and just having that be a mystery until the very end with the post-credit scene, that's just such a wasted opportunity. So for those reasons, I would put Moon Knight at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Werewolf by Night. This is an incredibly solid little project. I don't want to ding this project, though, for just being its own weird little thing at the point in the MCU when we're not even sure how anything connects to anything anymore. But just on its own as a standalone little thing, I think that the style is very solid. I see this more, though, as just an introductory debut directing vehicle for Michael Giacchino. And in that light, I think that it's very well done. Just on its own merit, I think that it's fine and it has some entertainment value for sure. I don't mind watching it at all. I don't think that the characters themselves are incredibly compelling, but then again, do they have to be? Not particularly, no. It's just sort of meant to be its own special one-off, and in that regard, I think that it's very, very fun. I just wish that more projects would connect to this in the future, that's all. Coming in at number 8 is Miss Marvel. Fairly simple. I love episodes 1 through 3. Just so fantastic. The family dynamics are so precious. I love Kamala Khan as a character, and just grounding her in New Jersey and exploring the dynamics of being a Muslim American in America and New Jersey. Just fantastic stuff. Amazing stuff. Episodes 4 and 5, though, when they go to Pakistan, just feel like they were dropped in from a different show entirely. And I wish that they would have saved that for a season 2 or a sequel movie or whatever they would have done, because returning to episode 6 has to pick up some of those loose threads from episodes 4 and 5, which are some of the weakest parts of that episode. But the goofiness, the escaping from the school, just the silliness, but the warmth in episode 6, all amazing. So I wish that they had just focused up on this show, because the strengths of Kamala Khan and her family are what make this show so special. Just a lot of wasted potential with episodes 4 and 5, in my opinion. Coming in at number 7 is Hawkeye. I really enjoy Hawkeye. I didn't think I would this time, because I remember just kind of enjoying it in the Black Widow vein, but forgetting about it. And the second time I watched this, I realized this is a really fun show for me. I think that the storylines actually line up quite well. The thematic elements do as well. I think really the biggest weakness of the show was making Jack this crazy, dumb scapegoat that you were supposed to think was the villain the entire time. Let's be honest though, watching the show again especially, nobody thinks Jack is the real villain anymore. And it's just, the show wastes so much time trying to make you think that Jack is the villain that it wastes time not focusing on other characters, when I think that the dynamic between Kate Bishop and Clint Barton, incredibly solid. I think Eleanor Bishop is a fine villain and a good stand-in for a henchman that's following Kingpin's orders, because Kingpin is really cool. I don't care what anybody says. I really enjoy the finale. And I think that this is just such a warm and nice show, and you're building up characters like Kate Bishop very solidly, because you have good character dynamics from beginning to end, and you have good character growth. She starts out very unlikable, but I think intentionally so, and then grows into a character that I quite enjoy. Also, Yelena is amazing. Love Yelena. Coming in at number 6 is Eternals. I know a lot of you guys don't like Eternals. I do. I think Eternals is great. I think Eternals deals with a lot of complex topics and themes that, frankly, the MCU has not been dealing with before. I think the idea of saving humanity is fantastic. I think that, you have the division between the Eternals characters, who I maintain, for the most part, are each individually built up so well. 10 characters in a 2.5-hour film, built up really well. I think the stakes are very high appropriately, but I also think that there is some humanity, no pun intended, to this movie and to the characters. I get the complaints that it's slow and it drags, and I do maintain that, Act 2 drags a little bit for sure. But by the time the movie ends, I'm always so satisfied with the conclusion, because it feels so sweeping, and it just feels like a study in how to build characters and how to build good quality, deep, insightful themes like the love of humanity into an MCU movie, which I really enjoy. Again, is it too much to ask, though, for a reaction to that giant hand and giant celestial face sticking out of the ocean? Just saying. Coming in at number 5 is the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. This little 45-minute piece of content is wonderful. It's warm, it's loving, and it shows, most importantly, if you didn't watch my individual video about the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, that it shows James Gunn's potential. It shows his full range of weirdness and zaniness and silliness and goofiness, and the Drax and Mantis relationship is so weird and out there, but it's so funny at certain points, and then Kevin Bacon just showing up and doing this is amazing. But then it also showcases the warmth that James Gunn is capable of with the whole Christmas vibe. I love Christmas, I love the MCU, and I just love this holiday special so much. Coming in at number 4 is Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. This is a movie that harkens back to phases 1 through 3 of the MCU. This is the kind of film that would have been made in, phase 3 of the MCU, with films like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man Homecoming and Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther. And introducing a character like this in such a rich and robust way, with such assured direction from Destin Daniel Cretton, who, great choice to direct an Avengers film, is fantastic. The villain, Wenwu, one of the best in the MCU. And I think that this just has all those special qualities that made those MCU films, especially towards the end of phase 3, such big hits. It has great character work, great emotion, great humor, great action, just everything you want out of a superhero film. I love this movie. Coming in at number 3 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Wakanda Forever is a film that, honestly, like I said in my video earlier, it should not have worked. With everything that was going on around the film with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, this is a movie that faced so many challenges, but this movie somehow managed to prevail. Guys, this is one of my favorite movies in the MCU Phase 4. I love the performances. Angela Bassett is just incredible in this. Letitia Wright is great in the movie. Denai Guerrero is great in the movie. Winston Duke, Lupita Nyong'o, Namor is a great villain in the film. There's just so much to love about a movie that deals with such a heavy subject. It's not easy to make an entire movie basically about grief. And yes, there are moments here and there, like with Ironheart, that I think are a little bit weaker and a little bit more MCU-ish. But at the end of the day, this is a film that resonates so deeply with me, and it's one that really, honestly, on a personal level, helped me to kind of heal from the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I didn't even know him. And the filmmakers, Ryan Coogler and Kevin Feige, they knew him. Amazing work. Coming in at number 2 is Spider-Man: No Way Home. What prevents this from being number one, honestly, is just the fact that my number one, which you obviously already know, is just amazing and almost is unbeatable in my eyes. But I will say Spider-Man No Way Home gets very close. I think that the middle part is a little bit goofy and a little bit slapstick, but then the ability that Jon Watts has to turn this movie on a dime and just with a snap of his fingers turn this movie from kind of light, silly comedy, you know, slapstick a little bit even, not slapstick is the wrong word, but you know what I mean, when they're just trying to cure all the villains and they're in a lab and all that kind of stuff. But then the Green Goblin reveal just turns this movie from comedy to drama in an instant, but it doesn't feel whiplashy. It feels very, very intentional. It feels very well written, and you have what turns out to be one of the most well-balanced films in the MCU, in my opinion, which has, you know, the lightness that you need for a Spider-Man character, but also the heaviness that is required for the third film in this trilogy. Obviously, all the multiverse stuff is great, but even if they didn't have Tobey and Andrew, this is what makes this film so amazing. I still maintain this is a wonderful film. But coming in at number one is, of course, WandaVision, which is, it kind of sucks that, you know, this was the first project in the MCU because I rewatched them all, and it just was unbeatable in my eyes. It has the emotion, the richness, the character development, the character growth, but also the fun of the MCU while exploring different concepts and exploring just weird and crazy different corners of the MCU that you just don't get to see in MCU films. This is such a great use of the Disney Plus model using television, and I wish more projects had taken advantage of this, but at the end of the day, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany just give some of the most dynamite performances I've ever seen, both together and individually. This is a show that explores grief in such a profound way. I love the ending. I get the action-y part of it. I don't think Agatha is the best villain in the MCU, but at the end of the day, I think that the way they were able to land this show with that emotional goodbye between the two characters is just, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So number one for me is WandaVision. And guys, that was my ranking of all 16 projects in Phase 4 of the MCU. Let me know what your ranking would be in the comments down below. And guys, make sure to subscribe because coming up soon, to close out my rewatch of the MCU Phase 4 is a 3-part video series where I go in depth on what went wrong with Phase 4, what went right with Phase 4, and how we can fix it. So coming up soon on the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel is a video where I discuss what we can learn from the MCU Phase 4. And then after that is a part 2 and a part 3 where I discuss how I would personally fix the MCU Phase 4. Stay tuned on the channel for that. I am so excited to present it to you guys. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next one.